Hey everyone, my name is Patrick, and thank you for joining us on Create, Post, Repeat, a podcast all about the content creation journey.
Today, we get to have a conversation with someone you may have seen on one of my favorite shows, The Flight Attendant, or my kids' favorite shows, She-Hulk on Disney+. We are talking with actor and activist Griffin Matthews. And not only am I excited because he's a great actor, or the things I've seen him do on screen, in real life, Griffin is an amazing person. I've been friends with him for over 10 years now, I think, and watching him grow and learn and succeed has been really, really cool. And sometimes when I'm watching these TV shows, I'll send him like a quick text like, man, this scene was amazing. And then he'll give me the inside scoop on how that scene happened. It's really, really cool. So I'm excited for you to meet a good friend of mine, Griffin Matthews. Let's get into it, because we talk about everything. We talk about his shows. We talk about the writer's strike that's currently going on in the middle of the time where we filmed this podcast. And I think you're really going to enjoy this. Stick around. Thanks so much for being here. Welcome everybody to the podcast. I'm so excited because so often I meet new friends, but today I'm talking to a very old, not in age, just in years together, an old friend, Griffin Matthews. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm hanging in and hanging on. That's the story of LA right now. Everyone's hanging in and hanging on.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about this, and I said stop because I'd actually love just to kind of hear more about just personally and professionally where you're at, because at the time of us recording this, there's currently a writer's strike happening, which you as an actor totally affects your life. And you were kind of just sharing like what's going on. Do you want to like share with all of us just like a little, like maybe rewind a little bit and tell us like how things are going for you personally and people you work with?
Well, personally, everything is stopped. Our industry is completely halted. So when the writers decide that they're not writing, and I'm in favor of that, but when they decide they're not writing, everything stops, because there's really, I mean, if you think about it, writers create everything. They sit down alone in their houses and dream and then write it down. And that is how entertainment starts. Someone's got to write it. And so the writers are currently fighting some deep-seated corporate greed, where they're no longer able to make a living wage. It's become really, the easiest way for me to describe it is there are residuals in our industry. That is how people used to get rich. So if you had written Golden Girls, which is one of my favorite TV shows.
Blanche, come on.
Dorothy, M.B. Arthur. That's who I am. But if you had written Golden Girls, you were pretty much, because of residuals, set for life. That show was a massive hit that ran for many years, and every time the episodes would re-air, you would get another paycheck. First, and it starts with your original paycheck. So let's say you made $40,000 to write that episode. When that episode re-airs, even if it re-airs the same week, we're going to put it on again at 9 o'clock, you'd get a hit of $40,000. And so that's why when shows go into syndication, everybody just starts getting filthy rich. Well, what's happened now because of the streamers is they can no longer track how many people are seeing the shows. And so the money is not even close to comparable. So you have an entire industry who might write The White Lotus. He wrote it by himself. But you might write The White Lotus and your residual check could be $5,000 for like the entire year. So anyways, it creates a very unsustainable model for our industry. People can no longer work. And also, I think it's worth saying too, our industry has changed so much because of social media. So I'm an actor. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I studied musical theater for 4 years. I spent hours and hours at a ballet bar and voice lessons and voice and speech and studying Shakespeare and Moliere and the Greeks. I am now walking into an audition sitting next to a social influencer. So all of a sudden, I'm not sitting next to Yale, Harvard, Juilliard. I'm sitting next to a TikToker, and we're about to battle it out.
Logan Paul.
And I did an episode of Law & Order with Logan Paul. I said, who is this guy? Where did he come from? And they're, oh, he's a social influencer. What's that? I didn't even know what it was. I was like, did he go to school? So listen, it's nothing against Logan Paul or any of the social influencers, but it literally made everybody an actor. Everybody's an actor. Models are actors. TikTokers are actors. So like that changed our industry. It absolutely created a world in which everybody is vying for the same spot. And think about this, a social influencer who didn't go to school is very happy to do the episode for $5,000.
Right.
Where actually they should be paying us $20,000. So it can become it's for our representation, for our fellow actors. It becomes like we don't have quotes anymore because now we just need to work to get our health insurance. And I'm up against a social influencer who's willing to do this for no money. And so I've got to either match the no money or don't work. And so it's like, that's the tick.
That's so interesting. And I just want to be clear, when you say you spent years at a ballet bar, that is the bar you use in a ballet setting, not a bar where tons of ballerinas drink together.
We were also at bars where tons of ballerinas drink together, but yes.
That's where I want to be. Like, I know this is fun. I know this is fun. I'm enjoying reconnecting with you after years of, you know, we lived in the same city for quite some time, and now you're out in LA, and we actually, you know, I like to say that I kind of propelled your career by us singing in church together.
Correct.
Thank you. On record, recorded. We're recording.
Go
yes.
with that.
But it's so interesting to hear you talk about all of this, because for someone like me who is, and I'm not putting myself down, I'm a small-time creator. I'm asking my friend for a favor to record a podcast with me to talk about creation and all of the amazing things you've done in your career. There's some rose-colored glasses where just 5 minutes ago, I'm about to talk to Griffin, who is a writer, a director, a farmer, a dad, a part of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yet here you are, working just like everybody else. And it reminds me of this one story. I remember a different scenario. You remember Bryce Ryness?
Of course.
I'm walking through Times Square, and this was the moment I realized that what you do as actors is just like any other job. But when it comes to the contracts and the money and the getting screwed over sometimes, I'm walking through Times Square. I look up and there's a huge Viacom screen with Bryce in a commercial, my friend Bryce, who I also sang with at church.
Yes.
And I text him, Bryce, you're in this commercial. It's for, you know, Rock Band, the video game, and you're in Times Square, like on a video billboard. And his response to me via text message was, oh yeah, I have to check on that. I still haven't gotten paid for that. And it blew my mind.
That part.
Yes. And that's the world you live in. And I'm over here with this, like, I'm talking to, this has to be this glitz and glamour life, but it seems like it is. And you love it and you're thankful. And we both understand, like, you know, the struggle and the privilege we walk in at times, but it's like any other job where it is a slog.
And to be honest, I am one of the lucky ones. So I do feel extremely lucky that I've been able to do amazing projects, and I also am aware that the course that our industry is on is not sustainable. So right. I have 2 kids, and everyone who has kids knows that kids are expensive. They're even more expensive in New York and LA. They're even more expensive in New York and LA. It's not about the food, it's about the daycare. It's about just like literally daycare. People quit their jobs to have a parent stay at home because it's thousands of dollars a month for daycare. So I say that because also we have to fight for health insurance. If we have to make a certain amount of money a year to qualify for health insurance. I just looked at this actress's Instagram. She was on NCIS for 11 years as a series regular, which means that she was one of the stars of the show. The following year that she is not on NCIS, that she left the show, she did not make her health insurance. And so she lost health. Even though she had made residuals, she did not make her health insurance. So anyways, that isn't sustainable. And it gets even harder when you have children. And you're like, so that's not sustainable. Like who can live this way?
I completely agree. And I know. I remember the day my wife came to me and said, oh my goodness, our newest son, is that even something you say? We have 3 boys. Yes. Archer, she said, you know, we were doing the nanny thing for such a long time when he was little, because we both work full time. And then he got to the daycare age. And when she looked at me and said, I know this sounds crazy, but we're about to save so much money because the daycare is only $2,100 a month. And I was like, only 20? It is. It's such an expensive thing. And to imagine that these people we view as famous, or insert whatever word you want in there, are experiencing the same struggles. Do you think, I kind of want to ask you, is this an America thing, or is it an industry thing, or is it both?
Both. Okay. It's unique to America. So I've also been really fortunate to travel all over the world, to work all over the world. America is so unique in that we don't offer health insurance, free health insurance for everyone. So that's a whole, you've obviously, and everyone listening has heard this debate. And then it's uniquely American that we don't offer childcare as part of, you know, just making sure that everyone is healthy and happy and is in a sustainable position. We don't offer maternal leave, paternal leave. We don't offer any of those things that actually create a healthier, happier existence for everybody. And so, yes, I mean, I'm out of America right now. I actually flew to London. I did a wedding in London, and I ended up meeting an agency in London, and I signed with them because I was like, I need to try to pivot my life so that I can live in the UK and then fly in to do work, because also the pandemic changed our entire industry. We don't do in-person auditions anymore. Nobody knows where I live. So when I'm making audition tapes, I could be in Peru. You wouldn't know. And then if I get the job, most of my jobs do not shoot in Los Angeles. So I'm shooting in Atlanta, New York, Europe, Rome, Bangkok, Iceland. I've been all over the world.
Wow.
So it's sort of like, there used to be a reason that people had to live in this city. I just read this fact that if California was a country, it would be the 5th richest country in the world. So that tells you how expensive it is to be here. And so many people left LA during the pandemic because they were like, in our industry, like, who needs to go to LA? Who needs to be in LA?
That was really hard for us as a family in New York, with just watching so many friends leave. Yeah, I think pandemic, I mean, I'm a full-time worship pastor still, and at a church, and, very community-based, and, very let's meet together, kind of, I know this is a big line to draw, but kind of like let's all come to the theater sort of a thing. Let's be together, let's be in the same room. And then, pandemic shifted all of that. And I think it also it forced people in a way to slow down for the first, I can only speak for me personally, and this is my experience, where for the first time in a very long time, I sat with some feelings that I had time to uncomfortably process. So not only are we watching industries change, but we're watching the people in those industries. Here, I'm putting on my psychiatrist hat or something, or social science. I don't know what it is, but we're watching these industries change, and the people in those industries have the time to process some things and say, like you're saying, I kind of want to make some shifts here. And in one way, that's a beautiful place to be able to say, I can make some shifts. I want to change some things, or I don't like this, or I really like this. I want to stop, start, or continue doing whatever this thing is. But it also can be a painful place to be when you're left to sit and process through all those things. It can be really hard. So in a way, not the same industry, but I understand what you're saying with all that. trying to switch things up. But if you don't mind, can I rewind a little bit and just talk about your life?
Sure.
This is such a huge chunk of it. But I met you years ago, not as an actor, but like we were saying earlier, you are an actor, a director, a writer, just a whole full-time creator. You're also a dad. You also own many chickens. Still, are we still with the chickens?
The chickens are alive and well, clucking away. We're covered in eggs.
That's amazing. So I want to ask you this, like, with all of those things happening, with all of the things you've created, and I want to dig into some of the stuff you've done, like some of the philanthropy work in Uganda and some of the things you've written there. What is something right now? Let's pretend that this cloud of the strike and the darkness of the industry you're currently walking through, it's still there. I don't want to pretend it's not there, but like, when you were working and things were a little bit more steady, what are some projects that you're just like, you're doing so much? What are you personally really passionate about?
Well, I just did a session today for a show that I have coming out called Genius. It's a series where last season they did Aretha Franklin's, the season before, like they just do different. Einstein was season 4. They do different geniuses each season. So completely new cast, new story. This year they're doing Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And I play Bayard Rustin. And Bayard Rustin was the black gay man behind the March on Washington. He was the brains of the organization. And for me, my career has mainly been comedy. It's mainly been, dark comedies. And this was a full-on drama. I had to grow my hair out and wigs, and it was like 2 hours of hair and makeup every day to get into character. I had to do so much prep work for the role. I had to really prep it like a play. Monologues, just speeches, monologues, and I was not used to that. I had to say everything on the page. When you do comedy, a lot of times you're like, there's the line, the writers wrote it, thank you, and I'm gonna just throw something else in there, and the writers love it. They're like, make it better, make it funny, make it alive. But drama is a little different. You actually have to like say what they wrote, and they wrote beautifully. Wow. So I am really excited about that, and I do think that honestly, part of the conversation that happened during the pandemic with Black Lives Matter, and for me, even being inside of another marginalized space, being black and gay, the roles that were always available to me were the funny gay best friend, the assistant, the fashionista, And so I think, to the industry's credit, it really started to pump out some more depth. So for me to get to play Bayard was like a dream come true. It's been so hard to try to find something after it, because of course you're always trying to like pop yourself. And it was such a magical experience that I'm wanting to do more. Like, it's hard for me to always be the cool kid, the fashion guy. It's something I can do. But Bayard was like, the series starts, he's like 40 years old. I'm 41 years old.
Yeah.
I don't look 41.
We both look amazing. 40, 41. I am, you are my senior. We're both looking amazing. Feeling amazing. So I'm with you there.
But I never play that on TV. I always play 20s in my, so even the types of roles that are available to me on TV.
Okay. We don't have to flex this hard. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm saying it because it's actually like, it's part of actor. Like, I had a professor in college say, most of your careers are not going to take off until you're in your 40s, because that's the bet. Those are the doctors, the lawyers, the dads, the moms, the murderers, the psychopaths. That's what happens in your 40s. For me, because I look this way, thank God, I end up the material, like, I'm chasing children in my life. I'm living a different existence than I go to set, and I'm playing a 25-year-old in a club, right? So what happened with Bayard is I was right in the pocket of my life. So I could tell a different truth. I could really bring my full life to the table. And that's why it was so special.
Your career journey, it's been really fun. This means nothing to you, but like your career journey has been really fun for me. It's been fun to watch. Because I remember being, you know, in front of my TV as we do. And I think it was promos for, was it So You Think You Can Dance?
Dance with the Stars? Was it Dance with the Stars?
Dancing with the Stars. I see Griffin's face pop up.
Yeah.
Silly, fun, promos, then some like interview stuff, some more live things. Obviously you're working and doing other things around that. And then I begin to see you pop up in, I watched The Flight Attendant, but which by the way, I was so thankful. This is the coolest thing I've ever done. I'm watching an episode of Flight Attendant. You come on screen. I don't even think I knew you were in the show. And I texted you. I said, I'm watching this show that you're in. And you would, out of the goodness of your heart, it was probably so annoying. And yes, I'm saying that so that you can totally disagree with me and affirm my feelings.
Disagree.
Throughout the episode, I'm texting you, this was amazing. Or this was funny. And you're saying, yeah, that was a really fun scene. I'm literally talking to the actor who I love, who's a friend, as I'm watching their show. And to your point about ad-libbing and writers, I remember texting you about a very specific scene. You're on the plane, you and another character, you're having this very hilarious conversation. And I'm thinking this was written so beautifully. I text you and you just wrote back, completely ad-libbed, completely ad-libbed. And I was so blown away. And yeah, and now I'm, you know, to watch your career, I'm very excited to see this project, Genius, because you have been this person who has kind of lived in this young, hip, fun, great acting, also silly comedy space. So as you're moving through those different things, obviously you're tapping into different skills. Is that something that you kind of have to, as a creator and as an actor, is that something you have to kind of rewind your life and go back to what you learned in all of your arts education to say, I know how to do this? Or does it just come very naturally to you to switch between these different types of roles where you need to basically present seriousness, silliness, whatever the case may be?
For me, and it is different for every actor.
Sure.
For me, prepping for Genius, prepping to play Bayard, because obviously he was a real person, I instantly knew that I was not currently equipped to do it. So I called my friends, and I had a friend coach me in winter. He's an acting coach. He had coached me. I called a voice and speech coach, and then I printed out the script and started highlighting and doing text work and circling and operative words. And I had to go back to what I learned in drama school, my Shakespeare training. You have to start to like break down the monologue, because when they yell action, it cannot come out like a monologue. It just has to come out like I'm talking right now. It has to sound just like this. Otherwise, it's boring. It sounds like a speech. It can't sound like a speech. So it has to sound like you're discovering it. So for me, the only way that I can discover something is I have to know it, like deep, and then I can sort of start to unpack, right? So yeah, it's very different for the Flight Attendant. That set, Kaylee, Zasha, Rosie, the way that I am on that show, and Kaylee's very much like this, Zasha's very much like this, Rosie always really knows it. But I almost don't know it. I almost don't know the lines. I sort of know them, but I don't overwork them, because I know when they yell action, I want to be alive enough that if Kaylee walks in and she trips, I'm like, you tripped. You know, like anything that happens, I'm like, this whole thing is alive, you know, and it makes it into the series. You know, our writers are so gracious about it, and they really do want us to stay fully alive so that it sounds like life, and life is funny. So anyways, there's like very different ways of prepping each show. It's intentional that I don't fully know everything about the Flight Attendant, but for Genius, it was intentional that I had to know it all.
I have so many more questions. I love where you're going with this. Has there ever been an actor that you've worked with? So you're talking about your process.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's been actors you worked with that have very different, but also very interesting processes.
Yes.
Maybe you don't want to share a name or anything like that, but like that craft, what's been an experience when you've worked with an actor that you're like, oh, I would never do that, but that's working for you? That's funny, silly, incredible, very scary. Has there ever been an actor you've worked with where their process was just needs to be pointed out because of how different it is from yours?
Yes, I'll give 2 examples. Kaylee Cuoco's process. She's the star of The Flight Attendant.
Amazing.
She's amazing. Kaylee is... She really... Because she's in almost every scene of the show, she really doesn't prep. She's got like a unique ability to read the scene once during a rehearsal and be like, got it. That's also not me. I'm not that fast. I sort of have to, you know, the night before I kind of have to like look at it and practice a couple things. Kaylee is sort of like, she just knows it. And then what's beautiful about her is she's along for the ride. Like if I say, when I ad-lib things at her, she'll fire right back. And as soon as they all cut, we'll laugh. But like in the moment, she really is listening. Like a lot of actors, they are expecting you to say this line. So if you don't say the line, they are like, huh? But the goal of acting is when they yell action is you have to still be listening. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what you're going to say. So anyways, Kaylee is so good about listening. Like when we are talking to each other, that's our friendship on the screen. We're really friends in life. That's how we talk to each other in life. And B, she's just so quick. She's so quick. So that was like, she taught me how to get quicker on TV. And then I just did a project with Genius. There were 2 actors. The guy who plays MLK, his name is Kelvin Harrison Jr. He's an incredible young talent. He just released a film called Chevalier. And another actor named Aaron Pierre. He's a British guy, so talented. So he's playing Malcolm X. Kelvin is a sweet teddy bear. I had all of my scenes with Kelvin. The sweetest teddy bear, really, you know, kind of broody and prepared and emotional and sensitive. And he and I just like became so close during the filming of that show. Aaron Pierre, however, was playing Malcolm X. And he was, I was like, he's like a lion. He's like cat-like on set. He never leaves the set. He never leaves. So when they yell cut and like they're going to set up a new scene, he never left the set. He never dropped his accent. So I never heard his British accent. Never. I only heard him talk like Malcolm X from start to finish, at lunch, in the trailers, did a hair and makeup. Never. He never dropped it. And then when we would go and they would yell action, Aaron Pierre would look at me like this. Like, no blinking. Just stare a hole through me. And I was like, wow.
I'm actually uncomfortable with you doing it now. So I can only imagine cameras, lights, directors, producers, him looking at you and you're just like, okay, all right.
It was deeply uncomfortable and deeply affecting. And so I loved it. It is not me. When they yell cut, I'll make a joke. I'll come out of character. Like I just... Because I can't stay in it that long. You're on set for 8 to 10 hours a day. You can't, for me, I cannot stay in character that long. Aaron Pierre never dropped it. And I asked him, I said, why don't you ever drop it? And he said, because I am afraid that if I like drop it, that I can't bring it back. So
interesting.
It was his process. It was so intense and so effective. And what I had to do with it as an actor is I had to listen and respond. I was like, I'm in front of a person who refuses to blink. Game on. I'm not blinking either. You know, like that became part of the thing. I was like, great, let's do it.
I love that. I think that's so great. And the way you share art can very often be us living in our own little silos. But the more I have moved into a content creation journey, which, by the way, I've just now gotten comfortable with saying that I'm in that, because there is a imposter syndrome. There is a, you know, I remember when another old dad asked me, are you trying to be like an influencer? And I was just like, yes, you know, like I think, but I feel like I haven't, I have not, I feel like I have things to say, have things to share, have things to teach people, and I want to do it this way. But I find the more that I go along that journey, very similar to the way you were speaking, is that it's less people in silos and more people opening their arms saying, let's do this together. Obviously, you're going to run into creators and artists who are closed off, or even just like, you know, nasty people, just unkind people. But usually the way you're talking about people has been my experience as well, where it is a bouncing off of, it is a not I'm doing my thing, but like join me in my thing. Let's do it together. And I love that. And it makes me want to ask, and I just, this is just the silliest and most immature question, but in your artistic journey as an actor, when were you starstruck? It seems like you work really well with people. It seems like you just kind of bring, knowing you years ago, you bring people into the Griffin story. And it's when you meet someone, it's very uncommon for you not to like lock arms with them. And I'm wondering if there's ever been a moment where, and I'm sure there is, where you've acted with someone, but where you have been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. Let me just kind of do my thing. I love that I get to work with this person. When does that happen for you?
Honestly, I'm very rarely starstruck.
Okay.
And that is because the more stars you meet, the more you realize how human they are, how insecure they are, how much they need to rehearse, how it gets harder as you get more visible, because then you really don't want to be bad. You really don't want to you take a risk. You know, it gets harder. So most of the people, I mean, I was probably mostly starstruck by Kelvin. He's like a 28-year-old star of films and TV. He didn't go to school. He didn't study acting. And so I was like a little starstruck by him, because I'm like, who the hell are you? What are you doing? You're playing Martin Luther King and you didn't go to school? Like, I can get on my high horse about it. And he was lovely and genius and sensitive and insecure. And part of that insecurity is why he's so good on screen. You could see it in his eyeball. And so he and I actually talked so much about that, like humanizing these Black legends. A lot of times we are afraid to humanize them. We want to just hold them up in statues, and we don't humanize them down to like they were completely flawed. They were completely insecure. They didn't know what they were doing. Martin Luther King was 28 years old when Calvin's afraid he don't know what he's doing. He's out here making it up. Bayard is 40. I was 40. I'm making it up. He was making it up. So there's like, if you allow the truth of your own life to hit the screen, I think it's so much more interesting to watch. And also it keeps you from truly being like starstruck, because you're just so happy to share space with another artist.
That's amazing. I will say, though, to the starstruck question, the correct answer was doing Patrick Murphy's podcast.
Well, I'm nervous right now. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm shaking in my boots.
Or you could have said Logan Paul.
He was nice. He was so sweet. He was sweet.
Of course he was. Of course he was. Well, let me, if you don't mind, I kind of want to dig into, you said something really interesting about, is it Byron or Byram?
Bayard.
I'm sorry. You said that, you know, here you are, a gay Black man playing a gay Black man. And that is something, especially given the recent temperature in America, I know that you've had to have come up against some battles in your life. And still. Yeah. And, no, Griffin, everything's fixed. We got that.
Everything's fine. I'm perfect now.
Gosh. There's so much we have to work on. And, like I said earlier, this is something that what I'm doing right now with you is something I'm very passionate about. Full-time, I'm a worship pastor at the church, and the church has never had a problem with racism or ostracizing communities. No, we've, obviously just been, I've had to go on a tough journey of, no, it wasn't tough for me, but realizing some biases that I held that I didn't know I had, and trying to listen to voices that, didn't sound or look like mine. And I'm still learning a ton, and we've got a long way to go. But you're someone who has not only walked through some of those tough experiences, but you've also done everything you could in your power to bless others.
Mm.
And I would love for you to share a little bit about, while you're doing this, while you're walking through this amazing artistic career with its own struggles and battles and things like that, you've also done like a lot of charity work, not just like, oh, I'll give here, I'll donate here some time or some money, but you've actually started some things specifically in Uganda. Can you talk a little bit about that, and, kind of what brought you there, and what did you do? And just, could you share a little bit about that?
When I was 23 years old, I went to Uganda for a summer to volunteer. And I'd never been to Uganda. I'm not Ugandan. But my friends had started some nonprofits over there. And so I went to kind of go see their projects and to volunteer at a local village orphanage. And that summer, that 5-week trip, it basically changed the course of my life. And what I didn't know at the time was, I didn't know that Uganda was really suffering from a massive HIV/AIDS epidemic. I knew that it's like you could know these things. P.S. We did not have Instagram and Facebook. Social media was very different. The news was very different. I had to like buy a book so I could understand what was going on in Uganda. But when I got there, it was so much greater and deeper than I had prepared. You kind of can't prepare for it. It was a epidemic. So I was there for 5 weeks, and what I realized was a lot of nonprofits were helping all the babies, the elementary school kids, because they're cute, and they really are. But then if your parents die and you're in high school, there was no aid for that. You're not cute. You're on your own. Go sell chapatis, go drive a motorcycle. I don't know. And so I just saw that little hole there. And so I started a nonprofit for a group of 5 students. It's called Uganda Project. And those 5 became 6, became 7, became 8, became 9, became 10, became 11, became 12, became 13, 14. And siblings and cousins started joining. And the idea of calling it Uganda Project was we were going to follow a small group of students without scaling into like hundreds. And we were just going to follow this small group and get them through elementary school, middle school, high school, college, into the workforce. So that was back in 2005. It is 2023. I have 1 kid left. He is in medical school. He's graduating next year. But it has been the journey of my life. I took many volunteer trips there, groups there. My partner Matt and I wrote a show called Witness Uganda that details a documentary musical about my experience going to Uganda and trying to help people, being like, kind of an optimistic American, thinking that we could jump in and just start fixing things. We learned many lessons.
Yeah.
And also the life will do this, but when I went to Uganda, I did not know at the time that it is one of the most dangerous places in the world to be gay. Had no idea. So here I stepped into the motherland, and I was like, oh, okay, like they'll kill me here. And so the show details my journey of being a gay man in America and trying to like navigate my sexuality in Uganda and in New York, and also like the moment that I had to tell the students that I know that there's been some political things here and that some of you have very strong feelings, but for the last 15 years, your education has been sponsored by not only me as a gay man, but many, many, many gay men. Because our cast came to Uganda full of gay men. Like it became, and the kids' reactions at that point, they were young adults. Some of them were already graduated college, but it was really moving to see them like go, wait, like because the show kind of took off in New York, and we knew they were going to read reviews on the internet. You can Google it and you'll find it. So we didn't want them to find out about it on the internet. So we actually planned a secret trip. We chartered a bus to take them out of Kampala, drove them 12 hours into this small community called Lake Bunyonyi. Myself, Matt, and the documentary filmmaker Andrew Moore came in through Kenya Rwanda, and we snuck across the border and met them there in this tiny town, like a resort run by an American. We sat them down and we told them. And then we got on buses and sent them back. I mean, it was like we were there for a week, and then we sent them that way, and we went that way. Just for safety, just to keep everybody safe. We didn't want anyone to, you know, get into any trouble. So anyways, and several of the students over the years have come to see the show when it was in New York off Broadway. The show premiered in LA. Our nanny was one of our former students. She's an actress and a model. Like, she came to live with us for a year to like get acclimated to America, and so she was actually in the show. And it was just
one of the Ugandan students was in your show?
Yes. And it was interesting because it's a documentary musical. The audience never really knows what they're looking at until the very end. And so at the very end, one of the actresses says, I played this role. Like, it's inside of the script. She says, I played Grace Nakiwala. And then she would like turn and like, you know, gesture, and then out would walk Grace Nakiwala, and Esther would walk out, and people would go nuts. It was like their heads would spin. They were like, wait, is this a real story? Like, what's happening? Like, and that was always the goal. The goal was to make people go like, is this a real story? Did this really happen? Is that really her? Oh my God. What, you know, so that we wanted the show to make this feel like the world is closing in on us. We know everything now in real time. So we wanted people to feel like the world is closing in on you. So what are we going to do about it?
That's so interesting, Griffin, because it seems like, you know, so much of your life are these scripted moments. And like you said, with Flight Attendant, you're kind of like, I know the line, but I dance around it and make it fun. But with Genius, you go in there studied, and so much is written and prepared for you. But then there are also these moments where you go out and create fully on your own. And I kind of want to walk through the story, if you don't mind me asking. Yes. And that, you know, because we've mentioned it several times. You know, my story with you is watching you succeed greatly in television and film, but also you know, we one time played a show in a bar together. We were in a band for one show.
One night only.
One night only. So like, I know this Griffin here, and then the success story of your career. I've known you in church spaces. I've known you in bars. I've known you at birthday parties. I've seen you on the big screen. Being a gay Black man, did you feel, moving through those different spaces, did you feel that there were times that you had to basically dial yourself down, and in certain places where you could be your full self, where you, much like crossing a dangerous border, didn't feel like you could be your full self in certain places?
That's interesting, because I don't know that I've ever dialed down.
Great.
I don't know if I've ever dialed down. I never had to come out of the closet, because I've always been this way. Look at my pictures when I'm 2 years old. I'm in a Mr. Rogers t-shirt with belts, beans, gloves, and I've been this way. But what I did learn quickly is survival techniques of moving through the world as yourself. So I became really good at shape shifting and switching language, and you know, just you figure out how to survive by being funny and being everyone's best friend, and so you become non-threatening. And I think truly the gift of 2020 was Black people were like, okay, we're tired of shifting, tired of shape shifting for your comfort. And then being gay, I felt the same. I was like, I am no longer interested in making everybody comfortable. Like, get up. It's okay. You can be uncomfortable. I've been uncomfortable my whole life. So you can get uncomfortable. You're fine. And I think that even that shift in my own thinking, that freedom in my own thinking, has forced me to look at myself. Who are you really? And I think it's also allowed me to show up in spaces more authentically me. Meaning I don't need to reduce myself to make people feel comfortable. So the filter is pretty much off these days. Turns out I'm in therapy. You got to do a lot of therapy. And whoever's not in therapy, I'm like, go there now, start working on it. But because it doesn't give you license to be an asshole. It does not give you that license, but you do have license to show up gracefully and as yourself. And I think that I am still at 41 years old working on doing that. I have to remind myself, even when I walk into the set of Genius. Now that's a set full of Black people, a set full of Black writers, producers, directors. And I literally had to say to myself, Griffin, do not shrink before the act. Don't shrink. Let it out. I do it almost every time I act. I have to tell myself, don't shrink. Because I've gotten so used to shrinking. You take up less space. But the beauty of playing Bayard was that he was so big that I was like, Griffin, hide behind him. He doesn't shrink, so you can't shrink. So my performance, I was like, be big. Don't shrink. Don't get scared now. So, yeah, that's the journey.
I'm sorry. I didn't know we were preaching sermons.
Why are you this way? You're never going to change.
I'm sorry. I think that I'm not trying to be like too dramatic about this, but that's such a good word for those who create. Don't shrink. A lot of the stuff, a lot of the content I tend to watch is about becoming a better content creator. Okay. Much like you used to have studied, different theories and different methods or method acting in general, whatever the case. And there is so much talk about your authentic self is so important. We're constantly trying to be these things we expect others expect us to be. In your sermon of don't shrink, a successful actor walking into big roles with big people and big production is still saying to themselves, don't shrink. That speaks volumes.
And it is also not just don't shrink on screen, it's don't shrink behind the scenes either, right? So part of, again, the conversations for people of color in 2020 were about you need to have agency behind the scenes. Yeah. And because I was on that set on Genius, I was able to, in between takes, which I would never do. I have never done it, but in between takes, I'd be like, sorry, what is meeting? We can't say that. That can't be the line. Isn't the line gotta be something? Wait, can we address this? I don't follow what we're doing. It was to really bring our full selves to the table. Like, artists are not just like talking heads. It's to really understand, because guess what? Karen Colbert don't shrink. She's on the set of The Flight Attendant going, no, we can't say that. What am I doing? I don't like the costume. Can we fix my hair? It doesn't look right. And that's not her being inappropriate. That's what she's supposed to be doing. She is responsible for what hits that screen. And so I could watch Kaylee take full agency of her life and herself and her character and her, I'm hungry, I need to eat something. Like, literally, there were times I'd be like, I'm hungry, but I'm not going to say anything because I'm scared that might make someone uncomfortable. And I was able on Genius to really practice being alive in the experience, to go like, can we take a break? We're hungry. Can he have a break? He needs a water. Like, it was magical. And I watched so many people, not just me, our director, Black woman director, like, it's like the way that she could run a set full of men.
Yep.
She was in her braids and her Gucci, and she was like, no, we're not doing that. And I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Crystal, it's so beautiful to watch this girl. She feels like my cousin. And she is running this multi-million-dollar set with all of these big dudes everywhere. And she's running like a boss. Our director on Marvel, Kat Cunningham, can you imagine a Marvel set? It's just all men. It's just men everywhere. And Kat
jacked dudes
with cameras and booms. And Kat is a tiny, stunningly beautiful woman. And she was running that like a boss. And I was like, that's what all those conversations were. That's what it was, to create spaces where Kat can be like, we're not doing that. And everyone's like, whatever she says.
Interesting. I think agency.
Like, yeah, everyone. That's why everyone gets better when people are able to be more authentic, show up as their authentic selves.
Yeah. I think, that's a valuable lesson. And I think that there's, obviously there's a line we walk where it's like, okay, you're being a jerk.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But to be invited into a project and not be like, head down, thank you, I humbly, but to say, I am now a part of this. Yes, I have thoughts. That's so valuable. I think of that with my kids. I was raised in so much of a, that's it because I said so. And
correct.
Trust me, there's plenty of times I've said because I said so to my children.
Right. Of course.
But growing up as in Orlando, Florida, don't hold that against me, and being a Southern Baptist, there wasn't many, sex? Yeah, let's talk about sex.
Yeah, right.
Or bigotry or hatred or sadness or hurt feelings. There wasn't a lot of great conversations around that. And now I like to think of my kids as like, we will sit down and I actually have to, I know you're 11. Tell me how you feel about this. We can make a change. We can make a change, and I think that those are such valuable lessons that I am still learning. So yeah, not shrinking, being, if you're invited into something, being a part of it. That's incredible, man. I'm so thankful for that. Again, I'm thankful for that sermon. I will be playing this back and taking notes. Let me ask you this, like on a more, or not more, but like on a kind of just a fun note. I mean, we've mentioned it a couple of times. You're in the MCU.
Yes.
That's something that regular people say, oh, well, they're in the MCU now. And in my adult years, we've watched the MCU grow like it's become this massive thing. Is it the same for actors? Is it the same for you? You're like, where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I am now a part of this huge machine. I have like a role in this huge machine, which by the way, my kids loved She-Hulk. It was hilarious. I would hear them, I'm letting them watch a show while I'm like making dinner or something. You're just cackling in the other room. But was it for you also kind of like, oh, this is just another role? Or was it like, dude, I'm in the MCU, like kind of a big deal?
No, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a big deal. Walking onto that set, I went, oh no, oh boy. It's the biggest set I've ever seen. It's a movie. They took me, I played the costume designer, Luke Jacobson, on She-Hulk, and so they took me into the warehouse in LA. There's like a secret warehouse where they house all of the costumes ever worn in the MCU, and they gave me a tour of it, and it was there's Spider-Man right there. They're showing me how the Spider-Man costume works and how it's been built, and they're just showing me everything, and I knew it was a big deal. That's when I was like, oh boy. And of course, it was don't shrink. You walk into the set, it's not at all what you think it's going to be. It's unlike any other set I've ever been on. Tatiana, who played She-Hulk, she's covered in dots and a camera hanging off of her head and a gray bodysuit. There's a stand-in. You're doing ghost passes, which means sometimes I would do the scene and there would not be an actor there. Oh. I was just doing the scene alone on set because they were going to CGI things into the scene. So I'm acting with myself. The background actors are screaming lines at me. It was like wild. And I literally strange enough, I went to school with Kat Cunningham at Carnegie Mellon. She was a junior when I was a freshman. She did not remember me until I got to set. But she walked up to me on night one, my first night, and she was like, pretty intimidating, huh? And I was like, terrified. And she was like, you're doing great. I know, it's so weird. She was like, this is the weirdest thing ever, right? And I was like, it's the weirdest thing ever. To try to do a scene, there's nobody in front of me. It's a comedy. I'm trying to be funny, and there is nobody in front. I'm in an empty parking lot, supposedly talking to She-Hulk. So anyways, like, thank God for Kat. Like, I just was like, oh my, thank God she came up to me and was like, you're doing great. This is so weird. Like, so anyways, like, that set was so kind. There was a lot of like really kind people on the set to help you through, what is this? It's like, it's almost like not acting. It's sort of like, it's like being a puzzle piece. You're just like in a puzzle, because you literally have to do things. We like, don't look over there, look over there. So Tatiana she's like 5'2". She-Hulk is 6'8", 17 to whatever she's. So they would build a platform, and Tatiana would come walk into the platform, and she had up like a little two, antennas with orange eyeballs on top of it. So I'm acting with her, but I have to talk to the golf balls. It's weird. She knows it's weird. I know it's weird. Everyone knows it's weird. So anyways, it's like that. It was like the puzzle. Like, you just have to, don't even think about it. Just talk to the orange. Just talk to those dots,
And just on another note, it used to be like we would have to wait for these grandiose movies, the Star Wars, the Hulk movie, whatever. And I just loved, like, both with like that's the next franchise you got to get into, Star Wars. You got to do that. But thank you. With shows like The Mandalorian and Kenobi and stuff, where you're actually watching series of shorter episodes, and it's not like this huge trip where you have to go, okay, let's get in the car, let's go get the $40 worth of popcorn, let's all sit down, hopefully it starts on time, and I'm sitting there with my kids, not watching the Hulk movie, but the Hulk TV show, and it wasn't less than in production value.
No,
like,
it's a movie.
Like, yeah, Mark Ruffalo's there.
Yes.
And at one point it hit me, I was like, oh, this isn't dumbed down, it's actually a full-blown real production, and my friends in it. And I'm just like, this is just incredible. So that was just so cool to watch you do that. And I really want to, I kind of want to come to the end here because I don't want to keep it too long, but I did want to ask you, like, I know you're in the middle of this just real tense time with actors and writers and the strike and everything, but is there a goal that you still haven't accomplished yet as an actor? I know there are, but like, what's something that you're like, I would love to do this as an artist, an actor, a creator, a director? And is there a project coming up, maybe it's Genius or something else, that you're just really, really excited about?
I have not yet led a series, and I it's on my like must happen. I've done a lot of work on myself. Therapy.
Oh, but buddy, I have a therapist and a psychiatrist. It shows you how much help I need.
Perfect. You're in the right space. That's the right. You're a dad. You got to do that. But I was lucky enough to work with Issa Rae, and Issa is as lovely and funny and beautiful and kind as you can ever imagine.
Yeah. And
I was talking to her about wanting to be number 2 or 3 on the call sheet. And that is, that means like, who's the star, and then who's second lead, who's third, like, and that affects your paycheck, that affects how many hours you work, that affects so much. But I've been like dreaming about being number 2 or 3. Just dreaming about it. I just want to be number 2 or 3. I was like, number 4. And I love that position. I work 2 or 3 days a week. I like, I don't have to carry the whole thing. But I was telling her about 2 or 3. It's like my dream. And she said, why not number 1? And all of a sudden, all of a sudden I had to go to therapy again. I said, no, lady, let's talk about this. What did this lady say to me? She said, why not number one? Let me go through that. Why am I dreaming on number 2 and 3? Like, and I had to really do a deep dive of like, why am I so scared to be number one? Issa's doing it. Yeah. She's just a person. She really is just a person. Kaylee's doing it. She's just a person. Reese Witherspoon's doing it. She's just a person. Like, and they're scared and tired and funny and talented. Like, they're doing their parents, they're doing all the same things. And I was like, Griffin, here we go again. Don't shrink. Why are you shrinking? So that's been my my secret to the universe. It's not public, but I think you also have to say things out loud to make them real.
Thank you for sharing that.
So that's one. And the other thing is, I really have yet to play a dad on TV. And I think that a lot of times I've found myself leading when I walk on the sets, specifically with Reese Witherspoon, for example. Now, you can get a little starstruck on Reese Witherspoon. She is also, the light is bright. Reese Witherspoon, there's a reason that she is Reese Witherspoon. The light is just so bright. And when we went to go film, we had a little break, and I was sitting in the kind of holding area, and she was there, and we started talking, and I always lead with, so I've got 2 kids. And I think it just like disarms people. Like, then they know that I'm not like, you know, some 20-something kid who's like, Reese, get an autograph. I'm sort of like on the dad. And then Reese and I launched into parent talk.
Of course.
Which is like, I love it. It's my favorite thing to do with people. And she gave me like some really great just parenting advice. But, which was, your kids are not your friends. By the way, Reese Witherspoon don't play. She's not playing any games. She said, nope, the kids are not your friends. Don't smoke in my house. Don't drink in my house. Not playing games. She's Southern.
I said to my 11-year-old recently, like, and I could just see it. He really had to process it. I go, dude, I'm not your buddy.
Yeah, I'm not your friend.
And he goes, what? I was like, listen, we can be buddies, but I'm not the playground kid. Like, this is dad talking right now. And he's like, it really affected him. But I'm with you. Yes.
I stayed to my 2-year-old. He goes, Daddy, I'm your friend. Because I always say, I'm not your friend on the playground. My mom said to me, I'm not your friend on the playground. So I sent it to Apollo, and he said, Daddy, I am your friend.
Yeah.
He couldn't quite process that. We're going to work on that later. But anyways, I said it to say that I really want to play a dad on TV. Because I also think sometimes in the archetypal space, gay characters are always, we're not centered, especially someone that looks like me, right? Like, I'm skinny, I'm black, I'm gay, I'm kind of effeminate, that you don't see that guy on TV raising children. And I'm like, I wish that America could see us raising children, because I am a dad. Like, you're a dad. We've seen some versions of you on TV, but I don't know if you've really seen me on TV dealing with the next generation. And I think it's been like a little bit of my want and desire to play a dad on TV. And I will do it like myself. I'm not gonna try to do it. I'm not gonna try to butch up to play it. I want to do it like myself, like the dad that I am.
I think those are 2 amazing goals.
Maybe I'll be number 1 and a dad on TV. Maybe that's what number 1 is.
What if we manifested right now that an agent calls and they say, Griffin, I've got this great show idea for you. I think you'd be perfect for it. And you're like, what is it? It's called Number 1 Dad.
Quick Google it. Does anyone have that title? Just Google it. I'm sure it's been done, but let's try again. Like, do we Google it again?
Okay, so we do like the Number 1 Dad?
The number one. That changes.
Number 1.
That changes.
But what about projects that you are doing that you're really excited about? We have so much, like, as an actor, as a creator, there's so much that I'm excited about seeing you in. But and like I said, maybe it is genius or something. Are there any projects coming up that you're just like, dude, all of this is great, but I'm really jazzed about this specific project?
So Genius is coming, so that's exciting. I just kind of finished that, so now we're on strike. But the other thing, I'm developing a play into a feature, and the play is called Sugar in Our Wounds by a playwright named Danye R. Love, and the play is a dark comedy that deals with 2 gay slaves. It like blew my mind when I read it. Danye was like, he's another black gay man, and he said to me, I realized that there are gays in Africa and there are gays in America. How did they get here? He was like, that means that somebody came over on that boat and they were gay. Where's that story? And it like blew my mind. I've never thought about that because I've never seen it. And the play is so beautifully written. It's like a gay slave love story. And it's emotional and funny and dark. And I just thought this has to be on screen. We have to do everything we can do to get this on screen. Because I think if you understand where you came from, you can understand where you're going. You can build on it. But if you think that your history started with, you know, Billy Porter, then you don't really have all of the context. Of course, history does start with Billy Porter, but it also like started way before Billy Porter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like us really grabbing a hold of our full existence, where we came from, how we got here, that we did love long before it was legal. We were doing that long before. That for me was like so moving. And so I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, you know, where do you want people following your stuff? Are you super present on social media? Is there something like, where would you want people to see your work, follow you, and basically be able to stay up to date with what you're doing?
I am mainly present on Instagram at Griffin's Thread. And sometimes I take Instagram breaks because you have to. Therapy. You got to take a break. The world cannot know everything going on in your life and what you ate for breakfast. Sometimes you have to shut it down, but I'm currently back on, posting pictures of chickens and children, and that's where you can follow.
Well, I'm so thankful for your time. It has been a treat to catch up with you, but not only... So often these interviews turn into like a, what do you got for me? You know, kind of a thing. But there are so many little nuggets of wisdom from someone who has lived a life, who has lived through all sorts of wonderful, terrifying, successful, hurtful, just the full human experience. Your full human experience has blessed us with a ton of little treats along the way. And I'm just so thankful for your time. Thanks for meeting with us.
Hey, don't shrink.
Don't shrink. Hashtag don't shrink. #1 dad.
That's it.
Thanks so much for joining us on Create, Post, Repeat. I hope you had as much fun in that conversation as I did. Don't forget to subscribe and check the description for all the applicable links that you might need, including a free download of my content calendar. If you're a content creator and you're wanting to take your ideas from concept all the way to viral video or post, you can't do so without organization. So don't do the organization. Let me do the organization for you. Download my free content calendar, and I'll see you in the next video.